Tuesday on Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Happy to be back for another day. Hope everybody's having a great day out there today. It is a Vikings-focused Tuesday, as it tends to be in the fall when we're on a regular schedule. Andrew Krammer joins me in a little bit to talk about the film from 34-7 on Sunday. 3-0 Vikings, talk of the league. Got some great news on Monday as well. Sam Darnold's MRI came back clean. Bruise on his knee, but nothing that should keep him from playing this week against Green Bay. So that becomes a showdown of epic proportions. 3-0 Vikings, 2-1 Packers. Packers been impressive the last couple weeks, winning without Jordan Love. I'm not exactly sure who it's going to come down to in the division, although Andrew and I will talk about that in one of my hot takeaways. It just feels like this is going to be a tough division, and the Vikings have put themselves right in the middle of that conversation, surprisingly so. Vikings poetry, overwhelmingly positive as it was a week ago, but how can you not be right now? This team is playing really well and a lot better than any of us would have probably thought. So that will be coming up in a little bit. Monday Night Football thought at the end of the show. First, though, what did I miss? Got to spend a little bit more time today on a couple of the teams that did not succeed over the weekend. Want to start with a couple of listener letters about the Twins. Kevin says, "Hi, Michael. Love the pod." That's always a good way to get your letter read. Keep up the good work. Long-time listener, first-time whiner. Royce has me big mad today. There is a difference between demanding that ownership spend freely and asking that they invest reasonably when they have finally assembled a decent core of young players. The Gleeman heads, I guess there's a word for people who like Aaron Gleeman, the Gleeman heads didn't want $180 million. We wanted a replacement-level right-handed hitting corner outfielder for about $5 million and two decent bullpen arms, about $2.5 million each. That would have made a world of difference in the second half of the season. If we can't have nice things once every 6 to 8 years, then what is the point? Why can't they cut payroll when they're bad like the normal sociopathic billionaire owners in MLB? But seriously, love the podcast. All right, Kevin, appreciate it. That's a good letter. That's good thoughts. I've been saying a lot of the same things. We're not going to disagree on this. I've been saying didn't need to. I think a lot of us understood that certain constraints and maybe even their own prudence were going to keep them from re-signing Sonny Gray for $25 million. That was not an investment they were going to make, and it was not an investment they probably should have made. Sonny Gray was great for the Twins when he was here. He had a pretty good year, a little inconsistent. ERA got close to 4, but he was a good pitcher for the Cardinals. He was just shut down for the year with a forearm injury. That's not the kind of investment the Twins are going to make. And we knew they probably weren't going to sign a comparable $25 million pitcher, and we certainly knew that in February when owner Joe Pohlad said, "Hey, we're not on the market for anybody. We're good." What they could have done is a little bit more on the margins. I think they tried Manny Margot as that kind of solution corner outfielder. He has not really worked out. Yeah, but they hit on a lot of guys last year that became better players than they could have imagined. Michael A. Taylor, Donovan Solano, Willie Castro last year, who's been good again this year, although he's been in a slump lately. Guys like that who solidified the offense. Now, they hit kind of on Carlos Santana this year, but he's been fading down the stretch. Margot has not been a hit. They've missed on a lot of either offensive players or certainly pitchers that they probably thought they were going to be able to count on. The bullpen arms is a different story. Yes, even at the trade deadline, when it's cheaper, right? You've only got to pay these guys for 2 months instead of 6. They could have done way more to invest in the team at that point. They didn't, and then when they realized their mistake, it was too late because you can't just go. There's a trade deadline for a reason. You can't just go and get players whenever you want. So I agree. Even if you were going to cut payroll this year, there was an opportunity to do more than what they ended up doing. Did you need to keep Max Kepler at $10 million a year? Could you have spent that money more wisely? It's kind of like the Vikings who let Daniil Hunter go, and as a result, were able to sign 2 or 3 players who have really helped the defense be, more diverse, more widespread, more attack angles, more places to rush from, things like that. So I think they missed there. I think maybe at the end of the year they'll admit that, but I think that's a good letter and a good lesson to be learned. George says, "Hi Michael, love daily delivery, listen to it every day." Again, great way to get on the podcast. It's a question: when was the last time the Twins tried the basic baseball play of all caps hitting a home run? This past week of usually 0 to 2 runs per game has been unbelievable. They can't even have more than a handful of home runs this whole month. And whatever happened to Royce Lewis? He has disappeared down a rat hole. George F. Yeah. The home runs have dried up. When this team's not hitting home runs, they're not great at manufacturing runs. They've been a little bit better at that this year than they were in past years, not being quite as reliant on home runs all the time. But that's certainly been a noticeable part of their slump right now. If they're not hitting home runs, which they have not been lately, they are not scoring runs. So, yeah, that's true. I don't know if the answer is start manufacturing more runs or, hey, just start hitting more home runs over the fence. Probably the latter. If they're going to win this week, if they're going to take these final 6 games as an opportunity, go 4-2, try to get past Kansas City or Detroit, who are 1 game ahead of them. And yes, the Twins have the tiebreaker against both of those teams. If they're going to get past one of those teams this week with a decent stretch of baseball, starting tonight against the last place Marlins, if they're going to do that, they're probably going to need to hit the ball over the fence, like 8 to 10 times this week. That's what they're going to need to do this week. They haven't been doing that. They're going to need to do it right now because that is what they need to do in order to win games. Shifting to Gopher football for a minute, if I might, Randy Johnson had an item today that PJ Fleck's buyout right now, if they were to get rid of him before the end of the year, is like $27 million. And it's not that much less, next year, like before 2025, it's like $22 million before the end of next year. Fleck's not going anywhere. They are not paying those prices. They are happy with their coach. They are not happy with the results. This is a team that has been in a bit of I would say free fall is the wrong word because it's not like they were ever at this high perch, but they are in a slow decline where they've gotten a little bit worse in this era of NIL, and some teams have gotten a little bit better, and the gap now is noticeable. The run defense is a big problem right now. Obviously, Iowa gashed them on Saturday. That was a big part of the second half of that game, taking a 14-7 lead and becoming 31-14. You got USC and Michigan up next on the schedule. You don't know when things are going to get better. Like, this could be a pretty ugly season. It felt like it from the very beginning when I was sitting in the stands at Huntington Bank Stadium watching them lose to an extremely mediocre UNC. North Carolina just gave up 70 points to James Madison. You could feel this coming, and it's not to say they can't get better as the year goes along, but I don't see a path to bowl eligibility. I don't see a path to a season where you're going to be happy at the end of the year. I feel like this is going to turn into a losing streak. It's going to be 2-4. These games against USC and Michigan might not be close, and if that's the case, it's going to get really ugly around here. And when people are getting mad, people are getting fed up, they're going to have to understand that the buyout for PJ Fleck is so cost prohibitive that they're going to have to work on improving internally. Nothing's going to happen otherwise. It's going to have to happen internally, and that is the hardest part for people to come to terms with. Let's bring in Andrew Krammer today from the Star Tribune. We're going to review the film. Andrew, again, film looks pretty good when you win 34-7, 3-0 the Vikings are. We'll get to that film here in just a minute, some of how they're doing it on offense and defense. First, you got to indulge my takes, though, my 3 hot takeaways.
I can't wait.
It's been like, you've been chiding me. You're saying it's a little bit too mild at the start. Maybe I'm just trying to temper my own kind of match, that kind of trying pattern matching. I'm tone matching here a little bit to make sure we're not getting ahead of ourselves out over our skis. But maybe we'll go over the skis this time. Hot takeaway number 1: at 3-0, rip up everything we thought we knew about the Vikings. They are the NFC North favorites now.
Ooh, boy. And I haven't seen them play a divisional game yet, obviously, so I don't know too much about the Detroit Lions this year. I do know that the Green Bay Packers are somehow winning with Malik Willis against,
which is impressive,
against subpar opponents. So yeah, at this point, the Vikings have one of the most impressive starts in the NFL, not just the NFC North. So I see where you're coming from. I can't try to talk you down too much at this point. They're playing like it. They have such incredible confidence right now. They're so well coached. They're healthy in the right spots, even though they've had some guys being held out. They largely have been okay outside. I mean, there's teams like the Rams, the Niners, who are just getting beaten by injuries, and the Vikings have been able to withstand and hold their own. And so, yeah, Mike, I can't argue with you too much there. I don't think that's too outlandish or over our skis.
Okay, then try this one. Hot takeaway number 2. Aaron Jones is the best all-around Vikings running back that I've watched in my lifetime.
Wow. All around?
Yes. I know Adrian Peterson is a Hall of Fame runner. He could not catch. He could not block. He was a great running back. Aaron Jones is the best all-around running back that I've seen in a Vikings uniform.
You're already putting him past peak Dalvin Cook.
Yes, I am.
Why is that? Because when I think of Dalvin Cook, I think of even as late as the 81-yard like screen pass he took against the Colts in that classic comeback. But when he was at his best, it was the wide zone stuff, the 2019 putting the team on his back. He carried more of the load Dalvin Cook did than certainly Aaron Jones has had to do. Yet at this point, I think Aaron Jones has, like, for the Vikings and Vikings fans and all of us who have seen this team for long enough, he's like a glass of water after crawling through a desert, because it was so bad the last couple of years in the run game, including that last year with Dalvin Cook. I think it's easy to forget. That's the bridge too far for me. I think peak Dalvin Cook showed a lot more at this point. Jones could be, if he stays healthy, plays 17 games. I just think this Vikings offense is never going to lean on the running back as much. And when you're up 34-7, you can do that like they did on Sunday. But typically this team is going to want to pass the ball. When you get TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison back, Kevin O'Connell's not going to be able to help himself, I don't think. So to me, that's where I would stop, just because of what Jones is being asked to do. And he's coming off his best game. You're right. Like that game, 148 yards from scrimmage. They got the screen game going. That was a key component. Him in the receiving game without Addison or Hawkinson, as I said. So he did a lot of things for them on Sunday and continues to do a lot of things for them. And he's up there. And then Adrian was so good at the one thing, right?
Of course.
It's like,
I know.
Yeah. So I guess I totally see your point there. And then I know there's running backs. I mean, Robert Smith before them.
Yeah.
They've had a lot of good runners throughout the years. So, but I would even think peak Dalvin Cook, Mike, was so good.
He was. Maybe I'm dealing with some recency bias, the glass of water in the desert.
Yeah.
One thing to drove me crazy about Dalvin, though, is he was an okay blocker, but not great. He also, the negative plays. One thing, I watched Jones, and I think it's going to be 0 or 1, and he manages to get 2 or 3. And it seems like a small thing, right? That's not going to like show up on the stat sheet necessarily, but he's very good at avoiding negative plays, at getting you at least into 2nd and 7 instead of 2nd and 11. And that's a big deal for this offense.
That is a good point. And you're right. And that's what they thought Alexander Mattison was going to do for them last year. Like, this guy's such a tackle breaker that he'll never go down with the first touch. But Jones is different in the way he's so elusive. He sets up cuts. Mark Craig did a great story a week ago on kind of inside the mind of Aaron Jones and how he anticipates where defenders are going to be. So much of it comes pre-snap and him reading the formations and knowing how defenses want to attack their blockers. It's just a veteran who's seen, 10 different years in the NFL at this point. And for him to be still so physically good, that's the part I didn't see coming, is like, this guy's 29. I thought he wasn't going to be outrunning people. And he did get caught at the 1 yard line on the 39-yard run.
Yes. Which frustrated him, because then they gave him one more carry, but it was just like, nope, we got to go somewhere else now.
But yeah, you're right. He's still so good. And I think that mind that he's got where, he just sets things up. He can make the first guy miss. It is invaluable to this offense, because Sam Darnold on 2nd and 6 is so much better than 2nd and 14.
Third hot take. That's probably my hottest one yet. Third hot take, her hot takeaway. Vikings offense is really good right now without TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison. I wonder if we're overrating how much better they can be with them. I almost wonder if they're just as good or even better off without Hawkinson, because he's not a great blocker.
I do think Hawkinson changes things in the passing game, and I think he'll change things for Darnold in terms of having the over-the-middle target that they just don't have right now. Johnny Munt, Josh Oliver. There was a play where Darnold trusted Josh Oliver way too much on a.
Yes, it was like he threw a double coverage. And it was,
dropped interception. I mean, those are the kind of plays that. Even if it's Hawkinson, you do not want to throw that. No. But those are the kind of plays they want to set Hawkinson up on, and in the right setting, hit them for big gains. And this is a guy who had from Josh Dobbs, TJ Hawkinson, a record, 10 or 12 first half catches against the Saints last year in that record setting performance. He is a game changer. And I do think he is the biggest or bigger absence out of him and Addison. I think Addison's more replaceable in that Jalen Nailor is truly a 3-position wide receiver, can do all the motions, can run all the routes. He's not as talented as Addison. He's not going to break as many tackles. He's not going to be as electric downfield. But you can manufacture and make it work. And frankly, when Aaron Jones in the screen game and getting him going in the receiving game, when that's working so well, it's even more easy to forget of the quick underneath stuff with Jordan Addison. And Jalen Nailor scored touchdowns in 3 straight games. This guy has found ways to get open in the end zone, make those contested catches, get his feet down, even the explosive plays too. He's caught some downfield. So the only one I would push back on is I do think Hawkinson is a guy that Kevin O'Connell really knows how to use and is such a dangerous weapon that you're right. He's not the greatest blocker, but frankly, when I watch Oliver and Munt sometime, especially Munt, but Oliver has been up and down for a guy where that's supposed to be his specialty. It can be hit or miss because they do give him some pretty tough assignments. So I know the Vikings are very much looking forward to getting both those guys back. And I think Hawkinson's the one that, fantasy football people and all that are going to get incredibly excited about because he probably will have a big role.
I just worry that O'Connell's not going to be able to help himself, and we're going to be back to 38 throws and 18 runs instead of 28 of each, because I think the balance on this offense is really important. You don't want to overexpose Darnold as well as he has been playing.
It is a good point because they had that balance on Sunday. It is easier to have that balance when it's Johnny Munt and Jalen Nailor out there.
Okay, let's talk film. Saw a stat. Vikings first team in 20 years to have at least 5 sacks in their first 3 games of the season. That's NFL wide. That's not just this team. That's NFL wide. How are they getting to the quarterback right now with so many different guys?
They're getting to the quarterback by showing you that they're going to rush everybody, the house, and then they don't. And they drop 8 and only rush 3. And then all of a sudden your protection scheme was set up to block all these rushers, and then the Vikings managed to get 3 one-on-ones. There was one snap where it was a 3rd down with C.J. Stroud, and Jihad Ward timed the snap so perfectly up the middle that he beat the center on a single block, even though the Vikings are rushing just 3, and the Texans tried to max protect on a 3rd and long, and Stroud had to scramble, had to evade and rush uphill and get maybe 7 yards on a 3rd and 12 or something like that. And that's the kind of stuff where they've got great individual veteran performances getting put in places that only smart coaches around the league are doing. And it's the tag pressures where, like I said, like a Josh Metellus is getting up over the right guard. He'll rush 2 steps forward, touch the guard, and then bolt back into coverage, where that guard then is occupied as if you're blitzing. But then the quarterback sees a guy in coverage where that block is trying to protect from a blitz. So it's taking away the advantage of throwing against the blitz when there's nobody missing on the back end. And yet you don't get the extra blocks up front because your right guard is a step slow because he's trying to block Metellus, who's not blitzing. So it's just these mind games. Kevin O'Connell called it, mental attrition on a quarterback. And just during the game, there's so few times that a quarterback can walk up and be like, I know what you're doing. I know where I need to go with this. And especially these young quarterbacks, Daniel Jones, Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud, we're not seeing these guys have the volume in their offenses or the volume in their mind of everything they've seen. We're probably not going to see it until Aaron Rodgers in London in week 5, right, where they're going to face a vet who knows. I've seen that before.
Yeah, I know what you're doing.
Yeah, because this isn't all. Yeah. It is innovative, but it's not all new. Like football's circular, cyclical. It comes back around. These are things that Brian Flores ran in 2018 with the Patriots when they won the Super Bowl against the Rams. These are things that have been run in Miami with him before. So teams have seen it. It's just these young quarterbacks get put in a blender because they think one thing's coming, and then Flores, the apt and amazing play caller he is, will throw a curveball the way that Mike Zimmer used to at his peak. We're just seeing, them keep these quarterbacks on their heels. We're seeing them confuse protections. The combination of the scheme, the individual performances, and then the crowd noise at US Bank Stadium, that stretch where they had 4 penalties in a row pre-snap for the Texans. Laramie Tunsil, their left tackle, was called for 5 penalties in the first half. One of them was declined. After the game, he was pointing fingers. He said, look, that's my name getting called, but it's on all of us to communicate. And you can see after those snaps, I went back and watched it, he's staring at the center like death stares through the back. Like, you didn't snap it on time, or you didn't communicate when this was going to be snapped to me. And some of these are silent counts where the tackles have to watch the football, and the other tackle happened to be doing that where Laramie didn't. So there's just things that like you all need to be on the same page, and it's so easy to get thrown off as an offense when there's that much coming at you from the Vikings.
Yeah, that's a great point. I wonder if I feel like we're seeing a little bit of Flores copycatting throughout the league. Like touchdown passes are way down, quarterback scoring is down. It just seems like teams are confused, and they probably saw a lot of what he was doing with limited personnel last year, and they're like, we're going to run that. Let's start running some of that. And if they aren't, then they're going to start doing it soon. Yeah,
and there has been great analysis done. I think Mina Kimes with ESPN did something recently talking about how Patrick Mahomes actually changed the league and forcing teams to play cover 2, and that Flores, Raheem Morris in Atlanta, back when he was the DC in Atlanta before he was the head coach, changed things and played more cover 2 and played more pressures up front and kind of stretched defenses wide and gave you the soft middle just to take away the explosive plays. And the Vikings absolutely do that. They just do such an aggressive flavor of it under Flores that you don't see a ton of teams run. You are seeing, you're right, I think you're seeing a proliferation of it. In terms of especially pressures, blitzes. It's fresh off the mind, speaking of the Chiefs, with Steve Spagnuolo, what he does in Kansas City. He's been doing that for years. But it's more the cover 2. Like teams are just putting shells on top of offenses and saying, I don't care that you have Tank Dell, Nico Collins. We're going to make you throw 12 times to Stephon Diggs underneath. That's why Stephon had that game. It wasn't like the Texans came in and said, this is your game, buddy. This is your team. No, this was the Vikings saying, we're going to take away your deep weapons downfield. We're going to make you check it down. And that's what they consistently did. And the league is doing that and frustrating fantasy football players and gamblers alike, because you're not going to see these explosive point totals because defenses are just wired now from years of Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar Jackson, these quarterbacks just bombing them over your heads. We're now 5 years into them saying enough. We're just going to completely back up and take that away.
Unless you're Sam Darnold 2 weeks ago throwing a 97-yard touchdown to Justin Jefferson. Now that would have been, more than half of his total passing yards in this game. I think he threw for 181, and it was less than that when you accounted for the 4 sacks. Only threw it 28 times, but 4 touchdowns. All of them red zone throws, if I'm not mistaken. 1 to Jefferson, 1 to Jones, 1 to Naylor, and then 1 to Munt. What's been the key to Sam Darnold and this red zone offense where they've been so good down there?
Yeah, what was awesome for the Vikings is it was a little bit of everything. The first touchdown to Jefferson was just off schedule. They tried to run a concept. The Texans did a good job covering it. And then Darnold had to buy time, ran to his left. And as he's running to the sideline, him and Jefferson were just on the same page, did the scramble drill. Kevin O'Connell said we practice that all the time, which they have to because they're not used to a mobile quarterback. So Jefferson rewires his brain, knows I still got time. Let's get open. And he does. The second one was a little coaching special where they put Jefferson in the backfield, ran a wheel route with him down the sideline, and then ran a mesh concept where basically just 2 shallow crossers coming from opposite ends, where they put Aaron Jones in Jefferson's spot from the slot, had him run a crosser. Johnny Munt comes from the other end, sets a pick for Jones, and those picks get flagged.
It's not a pick. You get away with it.
Those picks get flagged. Aaron Jones was flagged for doing one later in the game.
Aaron Jones had a basketball screen. Yeah. I mean, he was not subtle about that at all. He stuck his hip out. You're going to get flagged for that.
Yeah, and the offenses, they like to call them little rub routes instead of picks, but you're absolutely trying to get in the defender's way just enough where it's legal, not illegal, but gives you the extra space. Aaron Jones walked in for a touchdown from 8 yards out for that one. The Jalen Naylor one was a great play by Darnold, where he went through his progressions, reset his feet, and then fired to the back of the end zone to Naylor. So that's different from his first one, where he had to buy time and kind of be on the same page. And so this is more of a progression one. And then the Johnny Munt one was just a great contested catch, trusting the guy in the middle. It was good protection, too, up front to give you that time to find it. And so it's just a little bit of everything. And frankly, what I want to see, if I'm the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell, is more rushing touchdowns. I want to see them not, and it's a tough Texans front. They have a lot of talent up there, but you do want to see, as much as they talk about, we now impose our will on people. We can now run the football. Well, short yardage is still a struggle. You mentioned when Aaron Jones got taken down at the 1, they tried to run it in. Didn't work. The one rushing touchdown Jones has this year, he tried to rush it up the middle, busted block. He has to bounce it outside, and it works. They're still not clearing people away up the middle and at the line of scrimmage. And so I think Darnold had to do some work there. In those 2 first touchdowns came on 3rd down, which is all the more impressive because the defense typically knows you're going to throw it there. And again, this rushing offense just wasn't giving them much in that kind of low area. So it was good. It was good on Darnold. And frankly, you want to see that again and again. You want to see that consistency. There was a moment, though, early in the game, and I think it was before the first touchdown, where Darnold was about to get sacked, and he flipped the ball to Aaron Jones. And you're like, no. You're like, what do you
sure
doing?
did. Yep.
You're not Patrick Mahomes.
No, he got it called incomplete, which was fortunate. I think right after that, they maybe converted to Jefferson for a first down, kept that drive going. But yeah, he got a little dicey with it. He did shovel one to Jones later that went for like 4 yards. I'd be interested to hear what O'Connell has to say about those. If it's just like, hey, like you've got a guy who thinks he can make plays and you got to kind of know where the line is. But yeah, I don't probably not thinking the head coach loved all of the improv.
Yeah, and there was that play. There was the dropped interception we talk about. I felt like there was another really kind of iffy throw over the middle that could have been picked. There's some of those borderline plays that have gone wrong in Sam Darnold's career for him. They did not go wrong on Sunday.
He's not making as many of those, though. Even I think it would be safe to say he's not paying for the ones he makes, but he's not making as many. So we'll see if he can sustain that. But he's definitely got. I didn't realize his arm talent, but you're the number 3 overall pick. You're going to be able to sling the ball probably, but he can zip it in there, and that's probably part of what makes him good in the red zone too.
Yeah, there's a velocity on there that I don't think Kirk Cousins certainly had, not at the late stage of his career. And Kirk was never kind of the prototypical, strong-armed, big-bodied guy. He just always made the most of what he had, which is fascinating watching him last night, Sunday night in that game, where it's just some of those passes did not have any zip at all. It's like he's not planting with that repaired foot, that back foot very much, it wouldn't seem. But Darnold, completely different. Not only that, but he's running to throw. O'Connell made that point after the game where he was talking about that first touchdown and Darnold escaping. And he said, his mobility is a weapon for us in the red zone. He said, not when it comes to RPOs and design runs, just when it comes to, when things break down, being able to move to throw. And that's absolutely the coaching point. They're not trying to get him to turn into Matt Stafford or another kind of mobile quarterback like that.
No, that's a very good point. We'll see if they can keep it going next week at Green Bay. That should be a fun one. Andrew and I will do this again next week off of that game. Until then, thanks, Andrew. Talk to you soon.
Sounds good, Mike. Thanks.
Great stuff from Andrew. Just a reminder, too, you can listen and watch the 3 Hot Takeaways segment on the Star Tribune's YouTube page. Doing part of this podcast every day on YouTube. Maybe working up to full episodes on YouTube at a certain point, but right now, at least part of the episodes will be on YouTube every day. The 3 Hot Takeaways segment is up right now, so if you want to see us, instead of just hearing us, please go listen, please go watch. Leave a comment, leave a rating, give us a like, things like that. All of those things are only going to help the ball club. It's poetry time on Daily Delivery. My good friend Keith Rashat is here to give us 4 poems today in a team befitting of all the poetry you can muster, right?
I don't even know what to do with this team anymore. I look. I told you last week I didn't want hope, and there's a poem about that later on.
Okay. Well, let's get to him right now because we gotta do this thing.
Okay. Can a non-player be NFL MVP? Yes, Brian Flores.
Yeah, it's a well coached team. We've talked about this before. Both sides of the ball. I think Kevin O'Connell gets a lot of credit too. I've been more impressed with him this year as not just a play caller, but as a whatever he's doing with Sam Darnold, whatever voodoo he's got working with Sam Darnold, whatever magic he's got going here right now, is impressive. But man, Flores, give him some players and he can coach a little bit.
Well, that's a real twist there from the lamestream media. I start trying to talk about the defense, and all of a sudden you turn it into the talk about Sam Darnold and the offense, right? All right,
I've
okay,
talked
all
I've
right.
talked plenty about how good this defense is. I was just saying I think O'Connell gets some credit to it. Flores, yes. Flores is he coached his butt off last year without players for most of the year. He got players now.
This team is where it's at because the defense is where it's at.
Yes.
And yes, you're right. Darnold's been good. O'Connell's been good. They were O'Connell was good last year and the year before, and although maybe he could run the ball a little bit more
Which
late
is
in the
which he's
game.
doing now, which they're finally doing. But yes.
They're getting better at it. They have personnel as well too. But the key to this team right now is very clearly the defense, right?
Yes.
It's 2 straight weeks of high powered offenses that you're supposed to be afraid of. Even without McCaffrey, San Francisco still got a lot of weapons, right?
Yeah.
Houston added weapons on offense, including Stephon Diggs, who still has something left. And
Yes.
and they shut them down.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there are some new players, and yes, those new players have contributed. But the common denominator here is a guy who seems to be a wizard, an absolute wizard, who, uh, thanks to some of the NFL's unofficial policies, is still not a head coach again somewhere. Why is that? I don't know. Boy,
Yeah.
there's
Hard to
some
say.
some things
Lawsuit
going on
pending.
there.
Lawsuit pending.
But that is why they're at where they're at, and that's why
Yes.
they're giving us this hope that I was told I shouldn't have by the lamestream media, promising me 7 wins.
Yeah. He's been great. I went into this offseason thinking, man, they are putting a lot on Brian Flores' plate just because they hadn't done a whole lot offensively, right? You looked at the additions they made, almost all of it was with the defense, with the exception of JJ McCarthy, but we didn't even expect him to play much early. So it was like, okay, they're basically saying, Brian Flores, go do this, go be the dominant side of the ball. And my goodness, I saw a stat Monday morning. Vikings are the first team in 20 years to have at least 5 sacks in their first 3 games. And it's not just one guy. And that is a testament to better, more well-rounded talent, right? Like Grenard was fantastic in that game. He had 3 sacks. Van Ginkel, Cashman, like the new guys are good, but it comes from all over the place. Teams don't seem to have a clue what's happening to them, and that is coaching.
Well, name the best player on defense. Name the best player on defense.
I mean, it used to be automatically Daniil Hunter, and now it's like 5 or 6 guys that are really good, but not elite, I would say.
And
So
that's
yeah,
and that's kind of the point, right? That's
yeah,
kind of the point is that they improved the talent, and they were good last year until the injuries and everything else
right,
caught up with them,
right.
right? So the NFL MVP is Brian Flores.
And before Brian Flores, no doubt about it. Okay, poem 2, please.
Oh, please, universe, if there is a loving God, no more Nick Mullins.
Yeah, all he had to do was hand off one time. Oh, and he took a knee at the end of the game too. So
But don't be acting like that wasn't the most terrifying
oh,
moment.
yes. And yeah, right. And we're still, as of recording, waiting for testing on Darnold, but he sounded like he was okay after the game. So that's probably just hopefully just a procedural thing, making sure. But yeah, and who would have, in what universe, even with a loving God, would you have imagined that you would have been holding your breath to make sure Sam Darnold was healthy? But that is a commentary on how well he's played and the drop off that we know exists between the way Sam Darnold is playing and the way we've watched Nick Mullins play.
It speaks to, as we talked about before, how fragile it is right now, right? That this is amazing. This has been the best 3-week stretch of Vikings football in I don't know how long, right? And they went, we talked the last couple of years about the season of whimsy, you know, when they went 13-4 and all that. But everything about that felt fake, right?
Yes.
And there's another poem about all that, so I don't want to get too much into it, other than to say that watching Sam Darnold go down, right? Knowing that he was in some respects almost the second string because McCarthy was waiting in the wings, and we're all waiting to see what happens there.
Right.
But to see that happen and to know how well he was playing and to see how well the game had been going up until that point, right? You almost saw the whole thing unfold right in front of your eyes, right there in that moment. And so for it to not happen, for the universe to not poop on all of us in that moment was relieving, to say the least. Was anti-Vikings to say the least.
Yes.
So if I never see Nick Mullins other than in a kneel down situation ever again, I think that would be okay.
I think most people would be okay with that. No slander on Nick Mullins, but well, maybe a little bit. Poem
maybe just a little bit.
Poem
right. Not suable slander.
Just like light slander. Just dabbling in slander. No, it's not slanderous to say. It's not slander to say someone is not your favorite quarterback. Okay, number 3, please.
Thrilling victory with just one glaring weakness. Cut JJ right now.
Dropped the pass. Has a jammed finger.
Dropped two passes. Passes.
No, the other one was off target. The other one he got barely got a hand on. I'm not saying that was his fault. That was Sam's fault.
I am the only member of the Twin Cities media to have the courage to call for Justin Jefferson to be cut right now.
That would certainly be an interesting move. That might be met with some skepticism by everybody. But yes, uncharacteristic. I can't. He barely ever drops a pass, so it's shocking when it happens, right? And it would have, they would have probably scored a touchdown on that drive instead of having to settle for a field goal. The other one, it also was a third down play. Maybe it was like half on. He thinks anything he can touch, he should catch. We're just so used to it. So that was surprising, to say the least, to see him drop 1.5 passes.
It was surprising, and if he's going to have a couple slip-ups, or if he's going to have he didn't even have a bad game. He just had a couple of drop passes. This is the perfect time to have it happen.
Right.
In a game that they've pretty much already won, and that there wasn't much consequence to all of this, right?
No.
It's just weird to see a moment where he looks like a human being on a football field.
And the one he dropped was just it was an easy pitch and catch. It was not a hard throw. He was not really covered. It was just I don't know what he did. He just dropped it.
But it also speaks again to how nice this stretch has been, that the biggest flaw or weakness or whatever you want to call it in this game was a couple of inconsequential passes from a guy who's not going to drop one again for the rest of the season.
Right. That's
true. Anyway, I think we can all agree he should be cut.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Feels like this has all been building. You've been teasing poem 4, so let's hear it, please.
All right. Are they truly good? The evidence suggests so. I am terrified.
Yeah, I think, I think a lot of Vikings fans are kind of are right there. They're like, you went into the season with very minimal expectations, right? It was probably one of the seasons in the last 10 or 15 years where you had the least kind of expectations, right? It was like, McCarthy's hurt. Everyone says this is going to be, a 500 or a little bit lower team. We can just kind of tune out. We'll watch the games, but no real emotional investment. The emotional investment now is real because this is a good team. I don't know how good they are yet. I think they are, it's fragile, like we said, because an injury here or there can really turn things. They're not remarkably deep at certain positions, but if they have a reasonable amount of health, especially on defense, this suddenly feels at least like a playoff team. And if you're a playoff team and maybe you're a little bit better than just a playoff team, then it's like, okay, this is what is this team exactly? And so people are making jokes like, where should the parade route be? Stuff like that, like trying to preemptively numb the pain, right? But it's there. It's right there, isn't it?
This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous because
You,
there are two things going on, right?
yeah.
There are two things going on one side of the fence. We've talked about before how, at least as I see it in my lifetime, the two components of a Vikings team have never matched up in the way that they
Right.
seem to be this year,
Right.
right? There have been lots of Vikings teams with amazing explosive offenses, and there have been Vikings teams with amazing shutdown defenses, but they have never coalesced in the same year since I've been watching them
Mm-hmm.
to put together something that is remarkable or special. This year, it kind of feels like that's sort of what's happening. And so 2 years ago, we had the season of whimsy.
Right.
They were winning all these one-score games, and it was fun and frivolous and enjoyable. But everybody knew that it was a house of cards.
Yeah.
And then
Once you get
last
to the
year,
playoffs.
last year we had the season of poop,
Yes.
right?
Season of
Where
poop.
it just, it was up and down, and Kirk got hurt, and we had the pastronaut and all that kind of stuff, right? But this year, it feels like a plan coming together. It feels
Mhm.
you can see a plan actually coming together, and a couple of coaches with, like you said, O'Connell and Brian Flores, both kind of maybe at the top of their game or close to the top of their game,
Mhm.
really doing something with this particular team. So in one sense, it's hard not to be incredibly excited about this football team and what the prospects are.
Yeah.
On the other side of the fence, we have seen Vikings teams go 6-0 and miss the playoffs.
Yes.
Start out 5-1 and end up looking terrible. And injuries, they can happen. Whatever,
Yes.
we know that that's part of it, but we also know that these things can and have fallen apart as well too. And so this again, this was, like you said, a year that we were supposed to be able to just sort of take off, just watch
Coast a little bit.
games,
Watch the games. Yeah. See what happens next year. Yeah.
but they're doing it again. They're sucking us in, and not just me,
No.
right? Not just you, but the momentum is clearly building in a way that people are excited, and they don't, it's these hushed tones. Oh, we don't want to say Super Bowl. We don't want to say Super Bowl. We don't want to say deep playoff run or anything like that.
Right.
But that's the undercurrent. And that's the point that we're getting to with this team and its fandom. And it's terrifying because
Well, yeah, because it's like they've played like 2 or 3 levels better than I thought they could, even, or that I thought they would, right? Like if we looked at like beginning of the season, you're like, okay, like the pessimist is going to say, hey, 5 or 6 wins if things don't go well, if Darnold is terrible, if they suffer some injuries. The ceiling is maybe 9 wins, squeak into the playoffs kind of thing. They've raised the ceiling faster and higher than I could have imagined. Like this is now a ceiling that is much higher than just maybe squeak into the playoffs. That is not the ceiling anymore, and that's the terrifying part. And that's the surprising part, that a team can do that so quickly, that there's so much, that they've played so much better than even your optimistic take on them might have been.
And so then let's ask a real stupid question.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What happens if Sam Darnold wins you a Super Bowl? What do you do at quarterback then?
You keep him for at least another year. You can't, like, if he wins a Super Bowl, that changes everything. Because it's
why
not
am
like
I even asking this question?
Well, but here's
this
the thing.
team is making me ask a stupid question.
It's not like they brought in a 40-year-old Brett Favre. Darnold is still 27. Like, if you found something in him and he ends up having a great year, you might have to change your plan. You might have to change your plan. Again, we're so far away from that, but you might have to change your plan at that point. If he wins a Super Bowl and has a really good year as a quarterback, unless you feel like J.J. McCarthy can do that again next year, you might have to change your plan.
I'm terrified.
I know you are. We all should be. Vikings keep playing like this, these are going to turn into like Shakespearean love sonnets by the end of the year, right? These are all so positive right now, but you gotta go where the action is. Right now, this team is really good. It would be dishonest to be anything but happy about the results so far if you are a Vikings fan. So yeah, more to come next week off the Green Bay game. And then London, Keith and I will both be in London, so that should be fun as well. So good times for all and good times with the poetry so far this season. Let us finish quickly with the cooler. Jayden Daniels for Washington last night. 38 points. He only had 2 incomplete passes, 2 touchdown passes, a touchdown run. Washington, one of the surprise stories of the season, wins at Cincinnati. A game Cincinnati kind of had to have. Cincinnati 0-3 right now. Their defense can't make a stop. Joe Burrow was pretty good in that game, but it still wasn't enough. So Cincinnati falls to 0-3. Jayden Daniels, though, the story, had a beautiful game-clinching throw to Terry McLaurin. Just a beautiful play down the sideline. Blitz coming. Guy coming right for him. He unloads down the sideline. Perfectly played ball. That was a highlight of social media. Everybody was like going bananas over that towards the end of that game. Washington, though, looks like they might have found something in Jayden Daniels. Be interesting to see his trajectory compared to the rest of the rookie class, including Caleb Williams, the number 1 pick, compared to everybody else. But he had a fantastic game. He looks like the real deal. Washington might have found its franchise quarterback. That'll do it for me today. Randy Johnson, like I said, on tomorrow's show to talk more Gopher football. Chip Scoggins to talk football across Minnesota. Loaded up there. Lavelle expected on Thursday for some more daily delivery debate. So lots of good stuff coming up this week. Until then, I am Michael Rand. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Back at it again tomorrow.